Today we are going to deliver a presentation in which researchers want to learn about bats and rats relation when whether they mate at same source of food. Of interest was whether rats are predators or not, meaning the bats would be fragile away by them, or competitors in the sense that they would simply get into the way and consume food resources. To determine this, two related yet independent data sets were collected and analyzed over several weeks. They examined most intensely three bat behaviors: vigilance, risk taking, and foreign success. It offered the complete picture of how rats meet bats affect bat behavior. The If we talk about second slide, it shows the background of this study comes from a 7-month video observation of bats in a semi-natural colony. Cameras recorded what happened at food platforms, whether both bats and rats were active. The main objective was simply find out if bats treat rats as predators or as competitors. To do this, the researcher carefully analyzed the landing in relation to rat activity. For example, they measured whether bats were less likely to land, whether rats were nearby, and how quickly they landed, depending upon rat behavior. By comparing these patterns across many nights and months, they aim to test whether the bat's response matches predators' avoidance behavior or competitive interference.
So moving further to the next slide, this is about the data sets and the key variables. The research was based on two data sets. Data set 1 focused on bats. It recorded every landing attempt, how long it took them to land, whether the landing was risky or whether the bats got reward. Dataset 2 focused on rats. It tracked when rats arrived at the platform, how long they stayed, how many bats were present, and how many food was available in a 30 minutes interval. After merging the data sets, the researchers had about 865 rows of data with the high matching rate of 95%. The analysis also included a key variable such as the number of seconds since rat arrival, the time after sunset, and the season or a month. These factors were important because this could influence a bat's behavior regardless of rat's activity. Moving further to the analytical methods, the researchers used several analytical methods to make sure that the results were accurate. First, the latency data was highly skewed, so they applied a mathematical transformation like log 1 plus seconds. This helped normalize the data of statistical testing. Then the different statistical models were applied. Ordinary least squares OLS regression without robust errors were used to study vigilance. Logistic regression model were applied to investigate risk taking and foraging success. Since these outcomes were more binary, success versus failure, all models controlled for hours after sunset, season, and months to avoid a misleading result. This meant the researchers could isolate the impact at activity from other natural influences.
The fifth slide is about vigilance results. The results showed that bats' vigilance levels did not change significantly when rats were present. In other words, bats did not delay their landings or act more cautiously just because rats were nearby. Both the measure of seconds since rat arrival and the measure of rat minutes had very weak effects, with no significant p-values, p greater than 0.20. Even when the researchers divided the data into high rate minutes versus low rate minutes, there was still no difference. This suggests that bats did not view rats as predators because if they did, we wouldn't expect them to become more cautious and they delay their landing. After that, we talk about their risk taking behavior results. When looking at risk taking behavior, the logistic regression models also showed no strong changes with rat presence. The number of rat arrivals and the amount of time rats spent at platform did not predict whether bats took more risks, such as approaching aggressively or avoiding the area altogether. The predict probability curves were nearly flat, meaning there was no meaningful change in behavior linked to rats. This again supports the idea that rats are not seen as predators by the bats. Instead, the results suggest that the interaction is better explained as competition, where the bats continue trying to feed even when rats are present, rather than avoiding them out of fear.
So let's move to the slide 7. This was not the case with foraging success. Here, rat activity visibly contributed to differences. Rats' arrival significantly reduced the probability of bats receiving food rewards. What this informs is that whenever the rats were seen frequently, bats found it difficult to access food. But total rat minutes or the rat time on the platform slightly increased bat success. P is equal to 0.024. One reason is that unexpected group of rats disrupted the bats, but when more had passed with the rats around, bats sometimes slight had the ability to feed. Also, the analysis revealed that later in the night after sunset increased bat success, which shows that the time of night was important. In general, this meant that rats were primarily perturbing bats by frequent arrivals, ensuring competition for foods, rats, then predation. So let's talk about the conclusions, limitations, and recommendations. The main conclusion is that bats viewed rats as competitors instead of predators. Their watchfulness and willingness to take risks did not change with the presence of rats. However, their ability to find food was affected by frequent rat visits. This indicates that the primary impact of rats were competition for food, not fear. Nonetheless, the study has some limitations. It was observational, meaning the researchers could not manage every factor. The study also looked at a short time frame and did not monitor individual bats, which meant have revealed differences among them. For future research, it is recommended to conduct controlled experiments, extend the observation period to identify longer term trends, and use individual tracking methods to better understand differences in behavior between bats. So, this is all about our presentation. Thank you for listening.